our 5th year. And the golf club at Camelot in Elmira is just a special place. And if you have or need to have any more information, see Dick Melius. It's a great event. We have plans to do all kinds of things special, but Dick doesn't let me in on any of that because I'm just one of the grunts. So before we begin our discussion today, I'm thinking that this guy, I watched him run around when he was a little kid, and I can't believe he was the track champion of the modified division, Wilmot Raceway, Mr. Chris Carlson. Let's give him a big hand. By the way, I wasn't kidding. I was a little kid.
Thanks for coming up here today, Chris, to participate in our program. And of course, most of us here are familiar with your father Greg's racing career, a longtime sportsman and late model racer at Milwaukee area tracks in the 70s and the 80s. Maybe you can start off by telling us, when did you run your first race and where was it?
My first race was in a modified at Hales Corners. Prior to that, I raced go-karts down to Indiana and Illinois for 2 years. And then we decided to put together a modified. That's what I always wanted to do, was drive a real race car. And my goal always was to sit in the late model. So we put together a car, and our first night we didn't do too bad. We ended up having some motor problems. It took us a couple weeks to sort it out. Then we got on our way, and we ended up, I believe we won the Rookie of the Year.
What year did you start out?
That was 1995.
95.
Do you feel your father had an incredible influence on you, or were you just one of these guys sitting in the stands and saying that, yeah, I can do that?
No, an incredible influence. He's one of the coolest customers that I've ever seen, which is really cool. I mean, his composure, and I learned composure from him. But what benefited me more than anything is I had a family that would critique everything that I would do, and that was what helped me more than anything. A funny little story. We won a feature 2 years ago. My father-in-law's been racing with us, and we won the feature. And I messed up a couple laps here and there. And after the race, even after I've been racing as long as I have, won as many races as we've won, I was getting scolded by my dad and my brother for missing a couple of corners and laying off a little bit. And my father-in-law pulls me off the side, judges me, and says, "Hey, you won, didn't you?"
Sounds like my wife.
Chris, what year, just for information of everybody here, what year did your dad retire?
77, and then he went back to racing for Bill Baleen, I believe, from 85 to 87.
And I guess his being such a successful driver had to give you some prompts, some way that you wanted to try it out behind the wheel too.
Oh, definitely. From the first time I knew what a race car was, I wanted to sit in one. And you've always heard over the years that Hales Corners was going to close down. I remember times hearing that this was going to be the last year they were going to be racing, and I would be devastated. And that was prior to me even being able to race, and never thinking I'd be able to have an opportunity to race.
And besides Hales Corners, what other tracks did you test your skills at when you were just starting out?
We would actually just hop out on the road, and if Hales Corners was rained out or early, actually in prior years we'd be racing already. We would have been down in Indiana racing right now. And I tried to get as much exposure and race against some of the best guys that I could, because you needed to race against those good guys to get better. And to get that experience at different tracks was more important than anything. And it made it better for when we were racing at Hales Corners, because you could look at conditions and hey, this looks kind of familiar to what we looked at another racetrack. And that helped out a lot. So we tried to race out on the road as much as we could.
So 97 was your first year in the late model division at Hales. And Dave's notes here are incredible, because he has a bio of just about everything you've done. You finished second in points in 98, third in 99, third again in 01, 65 top 5 finishes, 8 feature wins. Dad had 9, of course, you always have to compare yourself to Dad, you know. I didn't have a dad to compare, I mean, I had a dad, but he sure didn't want me to be racing. He was a building contractor. So believe me, don't marry a building contractor. So you were running incredible amounts of time. I'm looking here. You were racing for yourself, or were you racing for someone?
I was racing for myself, and if there's one thing that makes me feel good about what we've done is we didn't win a lot of races. We were really consistent. And when you look at my bio, you won't see 155 race features or anything like that. We were just really consistent. We always had to conserve our equipment, and I never took chances on the track to wreck anything because we were doing this all on our own. And so that's why you don't see a lot of victories. We were just really consistent. There was a couple years ago, my last year racing late model, I don't think we finished out of the top 5 at any of the local tracks that we went to. We were just consistent, but you won't see the wins there. But I think that's what propelled us to moving forward in the sport, was that we were just consistent. We weren't wrecking cars, we weren't wrecking people. We were just racing clean, and that's one thing that I feel good about what we've done.
Well, that's very important, because night after night, you know, the carnage starts to add up, and eventually, not only will your crews leave you, the fans will leave you. And speaking of crews, who was with you for all those 7 years? Did you have anybody that was a special guy, or obviously there were several of them?
Actually, the guys, everybody who's been helping me from the time I sat in the race car, they were around with me when I was racing go-karts. We've become best friends, and that's important. They're not treated like employees. They're treated like my buddies, because that's who they are. They're my buddies. When we're not racing, they come on over and we watch movies, or we'll go and hang out on the boat and we'll do some stuff together. To me, that's really important. And with them being around as much as they have been, everybody knows what their roles are. And we've had a real cohesive group from the first time I sat in the car. Kirk knows what his roles are, Steve knows what his roles are, my brother, my parents, Steve's kids. Everybody knows what their roles are, and to me, that's what made us a really good team, was that we never had to worry. I had the confidence sitting in a race car. I never had to worry about something breaking and getting hurt. I always knew that I was sitting in a safe race car. And with that confidence, it helps you race better.
And in those days, he was known as the South Milwaukee Rocket, and now he's the North Cape Nightmare.
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
I haven't heard any nicknames.
Yeah, I just thought that up on the way out there. So,
Nobody knows where North Cape is.
I know where North Cape is because I taught at that school for 10 years. So, but other than Lenny Ostrowski, I think you're the only other racer who live in North Cape.
Now, you're not talking about getting real close to beautiful downtown Wilmot, right?
No, you're on your way to Union Grove if you're going through North Cape.
Yes.
But I also have to give some props here to Pat Haney for those statistics. It's not all my recollection or look up of these things. Pat, of course, is a historian for the Hales Corner Speedway, and we get to borrow a lot of that information. So thank you, Pat, for all that work. And as part of that, your dad won the Wally George race in 1977, and then you won it in 2000. Special accomplishment, I guess. I'm sure your dad and Wally were friends through racing. What did that win mean to you?
That was the biggest win I've ever had, and we've come close for prior years and years after that. We've seemed to finish second or third in that race. But you know what's really cool is, all growing up, that was the one trophy that my dad kept, and it sat at his bedside. That was the one trophy that he had, and that's right where mine resides too. And that's one common thing that we have. To me, that was the biggest win that we've ever had, and it was because my dad had won it.
You know, as racers, we remember those moments and remember what went into it. And I see here now that we've now moved up to 2004, and you decided to go back into racing full-time, what prompted the change, or did you just feel it was time, or did you have just an urge to stop watching and being more of a participant?
I think every race car driver wants to sit in a race car for a living, and that was an opportunity that I had. And I'll tell you this, besides for that Wally doors, when the neatest thing that I've ever done was at the first race we went to in Davenport in 2004, was writing down my driver's bio that I was a full-time racer. That was a pretty cool feeling, and something that I'll never forget. And I was able to race for a living for 3 years, which is a pretty special time. We did good enough to break even, which wasn't enough to put any money in the bank, but I had an opportunity to live a dream that 90% of the racers don't get to do. And for those 3 years, I got to concentrate on a race car. And looking back, if I had that opportunity again, there's some things that I would do different. But yeah, that was an opportunity of a lifetime, and I'm happy that we were all able to share it there.
So Dave's notes here say that you had an opportunity to survive on the national circuit, and I think, I know myself, and Bobby Robo is here, and Randy Ninneman is here, and the three of us had a real good sample of what the national circuit was like, from money pit to money pit, and we all realized that somebody had to be backing you or helping you at those times when you survived that. Who, if any, was your biggest benefactor?
We had Mike Soyberg, who owns multiple race car teams up in northern Wisconsin. One of his drivers had come down to Hales Corners and raced, and they had some difficulties on the track. So my brother at the time was working at the track, and he helped them out, and that put us on his radar. And from that time forward, we just kept on feeding him our results and letting him know who we were. And without him, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. It would have been impossible just to go racing on my own. But with Hales Corners closing, we needed to do something. And prior to Hales Corners closing, like I was saying, anytime it would get rained out or there would be some off weeks, we'd be off going somewhere, we would be calling up tracks, trying to find out who wasn't rained out. We got to be racing so much that my mom would call me, and I feel a little bit bad about it now, but she would call me and say, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Where are you?" "Oh, we're down in Kentucky racing." We didn't even tell them that we were off racing somewhere because we were just hopping in the truck and going. And the next thing I know, we look up and there they were.
Well, and along with that came, I'm guessing, lots of successes. How about disappointments? Because what's that phrase? You can't win them all?
No. That's part of the reason why my dad didn't really want me to get into races, because there's so few highs and lots of lows. But I think once he had seen that we were going to do okay, then he really became a part of it, and he's been my biggest fan and my biggest help. But yeah, we had a lot of lows out on the racetrack. We never, even when we were racing for somebody else, we didn't have the best equipment. We never had an opportunity where we had everything firing on all cylinders. Either we had a good car, but a not so good engine, or a good engine and a not so good car. But we never had tires to throw on the car, so we made do with what we had. I think that's what made our race team pretty special, is for our tight group, we all knew what we were able to accomplish with what we had, because we didn't have a lot. We struggled when we went against some of the elite teams. Every once in a while we could pop off a win here and there in league races and maybe pass one of those guys. But we were more geared toward racing against locals than we were against racing against the elite.
Dave, before you jump in, one thing I wanted to ask you, and I forgot. Who did you most?
When we first started off, Nickerson was building our engine. And then we would go between Tom and sometimes Pro Power, and now we've had Pro Power going out. Which is a great group. I mean, those guys are awesome. I mean, I would tell them this is what I want the engine to be, and I would always tell them I don't want something that's so hard on the bottom end that it'll snap the tires loose, and Billy and Johnny would get it to be what I would want it.
Well, and off that subject, but on the engine subject, I wonder how many people are aware that MDR just just got voted Engine Builder of the Year. Pretty prestigious award.
A little story. So the first engine that we had was one of Tom's engines. It was a little 362 that was sitting at Bill Bailing's shop. And Bill Bailing's guys didn't want to use that engine because they considered it not too good. And Bill said, hey, I'm going to give you this engine. I'm going to let you use it for a year. And we took that engine and we won features. We broke the track record at Hales Corners with that little 362. We qualified at Summer Nationals down in Illinois. We won some races with it. And we took an engine that was supposed to be a piece of junk and we made it work. And then after that, Bill says, here you go. If you just want to freshen up the motor, it's yours. And Bill helped me out more than anybody. Bill would call me up sometimes on a Thursday night at 7 o'clock and say, hey, come up here, I want to talk to you. And we would just sit and talk racing for hours.
Yeah,
and that was a pretty special time.
Yeah, he was a wonderful guy.
Yeah, he was a huge
hundreds and hundreds of races.
Yes. Yep.
Of all those different places that you went to, is there one place that's special for you that you'll always remember on that national circuit?
Well, Hales Corners is always going to be the track that's closest to my heart. And it wasn't the racetrack, it was the people. That's what separates Hales Corners from every place else that I've ever raced. But the first time we rolled out at Eldora, that was really neat. Joliet was the first time I ever raced on a half mile. That was a whole new experience for me. And actually, my favorite configuration of a racetrack is Oshkosh because I think that it fits me well because it's momentum. You don't have to throw the car into the corner. I'm a black slip racer. I'm not a heavy hammer down kind of guy. I like those black slip throttle tracks. And I'm not too much. That's why Wilmot's a little bit difficult for me because that place is always heavy hammer down and it really doesn't fit my driving style.
After you tackled that national circuit, spent 3 years out there on your own trying to make it. And we've all heard the stories about other guys that Danny Schleeper, Alan Kowicki, that one day they just loaded up their truck and did the same thing. You stepped away from racing, and when did you come back?
Yeah, what happened was we were running for the Fast Track Championship in 2006, and we were racing down in the middle of North Carolina, and we were in the points championship for that. That's all we had to do was finish in the top 5, and the championship for that was $50,000 in a roller. And it was a 100-lap feature. At lap 50, the yellow flag went out. I was on the gas, and I blew the motor right then. And that was our longest trip home. That was 16 hours of pure agony. And I stepped away from it for a little while, and then Brian Konopka called me up and asked me if I wanted to race his late model at Center, so I did that for a couple of years. But I never was I always enjoyed dirt. I just enjoyed that you could change your driving style, change how you ran the track, figured out the dirt, and pavement racing just didn't suit me very well. We experimented too much right off the bat. We should have just done what everybody else was doing with playing with 3-link cars. We built a 4-link car because it was something that I had known. Maybe experimenting with the first time on a pavement car wasn't the best thing to do. But we spent a couple years doing that, and then we decided to put together a late model and just go back racing locally. And now what we're doing is it's just racing, to be around my family and friends. I spent so much time out on the road that they didn't get to really watch me race. And so now my father-in-law races. We maintain his race car for him. He shows up at the racetrack, and that gives an opportunity for my family to be around with his family. And racing is a family sport, and for us right now, it's more of a family sport than ever because it gives us an opportunity to all get together.
You've been the Wilmot Modified Champion 3 times now, 2011, 2013, and 2014.
If my records are
No, I think that's right.
I'm sure they are. So you're driving that house car, and I love the name, the PF Flyer. And I remember they were on my feet, not on something.
That's where Lee got the name.
Yeah, I think that's outstanding. So what's on board for 250?
We're still up in the air. We're going to end up racing, but you never know from year to year what you're going to do. And family demands sometimes do get in the way of racing, but that's a good thing. We haven't even started putting the cars together yet. We're still kind of up in more I think about it, after I hear that they're racing down in Brownstown this weekend, I'm a little bit disappointed that we haven't started putting the car together. And now I think we'll start getting on the ball, and we'll be racing at Wilmot this year. We were thinking about traveling a little bit, but with the time, with my job and with my family life, I just don't think that's possible. It would be enjoyable just to see how we would do against some other guys out on the road. We got such a good race car team. It's actually a shame that we have such a good piece just sitting there, only racing at Wilmot. But like I said, for me, it's about being around my family. That's what.
Saturday night.
You're pretty close to home at Wilmot compared to, let's say, Sedalia or West Liberty
Or Paducah.
Yeah. That half-hour ride actually seems like a long time now. I spent so many. I was the only one that was really driving our truck back and forth to the track. So our routine was leaving on a Thursday at 2 a.m. so we could get to Chicago every single time. And I'd drive for 16 hours, and we'd get 2 hours of sleep, and I'd be out racing, and we would hop in the truck, drive another 14 hours, go to the next track and race, and then get home on Tuesday, work on a car for 2 days, and right back out on the road.
Oh, I swore when we ran, our shows there on Friday, that if I had a bomb, I would throw it out. A tri-state was just absolutely.
Now, your father-in-law is Phil Wrigley, correct?
Correct. Yep.
He, of course, is a veteran sportsman, late model driver from back in the day, and he came back into racing. He races at Wilmot weekly with you. Who else are some of your biggest challengers down there if you do decide to defend your title for 2015?
Actually, there's a lot of guys down there that can win between Scott Kutzhaus, I think he's won 6 championships down there. Mike Sullivan runs fast. The Simons have been running good, especially Nick. He's been running well. Actually, both of them have been running well. I think it's funny. I think they're all picking up some speed. I don't know if it's because they're watching the way that I drive, if that helps a little bit, because I'm not a throw it in the corner. I'm a drive it as straight as you possibly can. And we put our videos online every week, and I don't know if they're looking at that to see exactly what I'm doing. But everybody's picked up the pace, and we have to pick up the pace too, just because they're all getting faster. And last year was the first time in my racing career that Phil told me, okay, whatever you need to do to win, just ask and you'll get whatever you want. So it's the first time that we've had a good car, a good engine, we've had tires on a race car. And I think we had shown what the potential was of our race team. And over the last 2 years, 2013 and 14, I feel like we could have won every night that we raced. And we had a couple of mechanical failures that actually were something that, for as good as our crew is, they would have never caught it. Broke the rear end is one of those things, and we busted a gear in our oil pump. Other than that, we've been such a good team of not having mechanical failures. That's our biggest success. Is not breaking. We show up at the racetrack. I can only think of a handful of times over my career of racing that we've had mechanical failures of something that we just missed, and that's been our strength.
I'm kind of curious how close, and maybe some of the people here are also, how close are your cars to the IMCA rule cars that race at Luxembourg, Oshkosh, places like that? And do you run a crate motor or claimer or?
Yeah, the only difference is we can run a spoiler on ours, which is easy to take off. The one thing that's difficult is that they can run roller engines down there, and every IMCA is all flat tap and stuff. So you got to pick which one you want to do, because at Wilmot, for as heavy as the track is, if you stick yourself with a flat tap, but I think it puts you at a little bit of a disadvantage. So we've just decided to stick with the rollers, and that's really what kept us from going out on the road. Is that that's been the biggest thing that's kept us really close to home.
Speaking of Wilmot, I've heard several bits of negative feedback at the car show program about Wilmot being in trouble as far as car counts and divisions, and these drivers are disgruntled because of money and and that always goes on.
That's every racetrack in
Yeah,
America.
I was just going to say that was, every time we strapped our butts in the seat, we felt we were underpaid, but Well, what's the pay program like there? And again, this is totally unscripted, so.
The pay program, I mean, you really have to win to keep going, and I've been so used over my racing career to just being able to try to finish in the top 5 to pay the bills to go racing the next week. And my second year racing there, I started getting into that mode. Well, it drops off so fast when you get down to 3rd or 4th. Then all of a sudden we started looking at our pay checks and started thinking, okay, we got to start racing harder and stop getting in the conservation mode and just start winning.
Yeah, top 5 doesn't do it.
No, you have to be winning. Even second place, it's 1 year, in 1998, which was my best year racing late models, we had a sponsor that was actually giving me a bonus for every feature and second place feature finish that we had. And that's, to me, from a sponsor, that was awesome. I mean, instead of racing for $1,000 to win, we were racing for $2,000 to win. And that was our best year that we've had racing. We qualified fast a lot, and
Is he still around?
yeah, he's retired, so.
I was starting to get some temptation.
You want to be a car owner?
You can be a car owner,
I may be 73, but that doesn't mean I can't figure out what the throttle is.
Just to wrap up on the 2015, do you have any sponsors secured? I know you had sponsorship last year from Piranha.
Yeah, we have all the same group, Piranha Paper Shredding, ARR, Waukesha Recycling, West Dallas Salvage, BF Flyer, Premier Fabricating, Pro Power Engines, just a great group of people, and that's what makes this fun. And the help of my family, my mom and dad, Phil in Virginia, Rayburg. Phil just says, hey, I want you to go out and win, and whatever it takes, just go out and do it. And, what's been helping him is that, we're on a 2-car team, whatever we run both cars out of my house, and our cars are identical. I mean, down to the last bolt. And then whatever we change on my car, we change on his car, and he's had to do some learning of driving style, because I think my driving style is a little bit different than everybody else. And, we've spent a lot of time talking, trying to get him to change his driving style a little bit. But he's been a huge help, and it's a huge help having him run a car that's set up identical to mine, because then he can give us an idea of what he's feeling that we need to do to update our program as well. But yeah, I'm really fortunate to be surrounded by such great people. My crew are second to none. They're awesome, and like I said, they're my best buddies, and I watch their kids grow up. That's what our success is. I mean, those guys are at our race shop Sunday morning, every Sunday, washing the race car and getting it ready for the following week. And you can't expect any more from a group of people that are just doing this because they love being around racing. And the thing that I can do for them is give it my all when I'm at the racetrack and try to win, because they deserve that.
Okay, we're at the point in our interviews where we do 30 seconds on each topic, and you can either answer it, or you can say pass, I don't want to touch it. So
I'm pretty open, though.
the first one I know we discussed a lot, and I know it still people have a heavy heart over what happened in 2003, and that was the closing of the Hales Corner Speedway. And I know you touched on it. I don't know if you had anything else you want to say about it, but that was the first one I had.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of time that goes by that I don't wish that Hayes racetrack was there, and
I'm right behind you.
yeah, I'll tell you, it's really devastating, and I don't know if John will ever know how many people's hearts were touched by that place, because we were all a family. I had never raced at a place that has been like that before. You can have a guy who, you were enemies with, or you guys didn't get along, but if something happened where somebody needed some help on the side of the road, or they needed a part, you'd stop and you'd help them, or you'd give them a part. And I've never seen that at any other place that I've raced, and it's really too bad, what I wouldn't give to be able to have that track come back, and it's the atmosphere that's what made it special. And actually, if you think about it, the racing was really good there for a flat, dry racetrack. When you watch the videos from the races, there was really good races.
There's a lot of good drivers there.
Yeah. looks good.
It was dirt track racing.
Yep.
I mean, at its best.
You know what's funny is that, when we would travel around and if Jim Watson was out on the road or Brett Seaver, any of those guys, when we would go to other racetracks, we were all pretty competitive just because we were used to racing on a track that was black and slick and flat. And it worked to our advantage when outsiders would come in because you didn't see a lot of guys who would just come in from the outside and beat up on the locals there because the track was so good.
Speaking of dirt, 30 seconds on your best dirt track ride or racer that you ever completed.
I would have liked to have seen my dad race. He's my hero. Russ Shepard, he's awesome. He's fast. We raced against Billy Moyer and Scott Bloomquist. There's so many. It's hard to say, but when it comes to race car drivers, my dad is. I mean, he's the one who I've tried to emulate, and I wish I would have been around to be able to see him. I wish they would have more videos so you could see what was going on back in the 70s. You really get to live through photos, and that's what it is.
He was one of the best.
I think so.
How about your feelings on a regional modified series? I know there was one a couple of years back they tried to start. Do you think it helps the local tracks, or do you think it adds more costs and kind of makes it tougher on the weekly racer?
I would welcome one. I wish I had more time to do it, and they've actually helped everybody out now because they've gotten rid of the Ford 9-inch rear ends, and you can run a quick change now, which really helps out the program because that is saving some guys some money. That was another reason why we didn't go racing modifieds out on the road 3 years ago, because you're spending $600 on a set of gears that you want to tune up to each track. I like the touring stuff. I like seeing different tracks. I enjoy that a lot. And I think for the fans, it's really, to me, that's what's really special is because they get to see a new guy coming to their racetrack. I had talked to Steve Sinclair a while back. Why couldn't you guys work something out with Plymouth where maybe one week you'd have late models down at Wilmot, and then the next week you'd have them up at Plymouth, and keep swapping between sprint cars and late models so people would be able to get a different flavor of the cars that are out there.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I think nowadays having those multiple track deals going on are difficult. But to me, for the fans, that's what's most important. They get to see some new guys show up at the racetrack.
All right, you want to ask him that last one?
I'm going to give you more than 30 seconds.
No, well, 30 seconds on my watch, but it's not running.
Yeah, I'm a non-drinker, so it's hard for me to ask you what's your favorite Miller or Budweiser. Actually, by the way, what are they anyway?
What's my favorite beer?
Oh, is that beer?
Well, maybe he has a different brand of racing fuel than me.
Actually, it's funny that we spent so much, I was so focused on, Pat and he and I talked about this a little bit because I was always a little bit distant from everybody else at the racetrack because my goal was to sit in a race car for a living. That's what I wanted to do. So we never spent time sitting out at the tree, hanging out and drinking after the races. We were off getting ready to go to the next racetrack. When I started with the modified, we were racing Hales Corners on Saturday night, and we were switching it over just like my dad did, and we were racing at Slinger on Sundays. And that only lasted so long because we decided we needed to get our focus on one or the other. But we were so focused on racing. That's all I wanted to do was sit in a race car for a living, and I knew what my goal was. And we didn't spend time, joking around or having fun with everybody else. We were going racing. That's we knew what our goals were.
And this guy has single-handedly made the modified division 100 times better than it was at Wilmot by him competing there over the last 3 or 4 years. And of course, they're all gunning for you now, but he's really made a difference down there. And if you've not been to the Wilmot Raceway on a weekly show, Chris Carlson is worth the price of admission. And now that he's the North Cape nightmare, make sure you get out to Wilmot when the season opens this year. And thanks a lot for coming up here.
I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, everybody, for coming.
I heard they put a whole bunch of clay down there.
interesting year there, especially with the wingless sprint cars. I don't know if that's the best place for something like that. You might end up with some not so good situations, but hopefully the dirt ends up to smooth the place out, because that might not be.
All right, our next guest here will be Dan Church Jr. He's the limited late model 2014 Slinger Super Speedway track champion. Dan Church. Welcome, and thanks for coming up here. I believe you're from Big Bend, correct?
Originally, that's where I was born and raised, and lived there until about 5 years ago. And my wife and I moved down to Williamsburg around the area.
All right. So, both of us here today, including myself, would like to know what got you interested in racing and where you started out.
Pretty much, you guys just talked a lot about Hales Corner Speedway. I pretty much grew up in the bleachers there. Mike Congress, my stepdad, on it very much about 8. He had started dating when I was about 5, so I pretty much grew up in the bleachers there since I was about 5 years old. And used to run around. Jake Dolan and I were best friends. I'll show you here. Facing stories before, but I really could use it. At the track when we were kids, and we'd get dropped off from our parents basically at the front gates. They'd drive the haulers in the pits, and we'd have a free run of the place for the whole day. So, pretty much.
You snuck out by the tree?
No, we were too young for that. But later on in life, I was on a tree a few times. But basically grew up in Hales Corners, watching races there, and then my stepdad Mike, they ran that Worcester tour for a couple of years when I was probably 10, 12 years old. So got to go over to Shawano and Marshfield when I was there, Wilmot, and some other tracks around Wisconsin, and basically grew up dirt racing. So planned on starting racing when I was 18, and then John Cajun changed the rule to 16 the year that I turned 16. So started racing out there in a modified in '96, and by the time I was 18, 19, I had aspirations to be the next Jeff Gordon, so I tried going asphalt racing in 2000.
He stayed away from them because
blew up a bunch of engines. And ran out of money, and then my parents basically talked me into coming back there racing. So then I came back to Hills in 2001 or 2002, and raced a total of 5 years at the Hills, and a couple other tracks. I went to a month here and there, Sal a couple times, and then tried going asphalt racing again in 2003. Pretty much had the same type of engine problems, and then I kind of quit racing for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I went on your website and I read some information on there that you spent about 5 years in the IMCA type modifieds between Hales and Wilmot. Then you stepped away from racing for a little while. And why was that?
Pretty much, my wife and I we have 4 daughters, so we had a young family going. Basically went self-employed around that same time, so we were busy getting our company off the ground and having kids and doing other responsibilities in life.
That'll do it.
Yeah, having kids is pretty big one.
Yeah. We have 4 daughters, so our oldest just turned 15 last month, and our youngest is 7. So it kind of took a couple years away from things.
So you mentioned Mike Kahn, so you spent a lot of time with him as a youngster. Is he still racing today?
Yep, he actually runs a modified down at Wilmot. Pretty much goes out to have fun, still has the itch to go race, so he still runs down at Wilmot pretty much every Saturday.
What kind of an influence do you think he added to your racing career?
Well, I have, growing up, I basically got the bug of racing from him. It was kind of neat winning the championship at Slinger this year with him and my his fault. I got into this addiction.
I gotta put blame someplace, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's pretty much I credit me racing or blame me racing for, growing up, going racing with him, that falling in love with it so much.
So in 2007, you came back and you raced a Midwest Sportsman car at Slinger, and you were Rookie of the Year.
Yep, that's basically, came back in '07 after taking a couple years off. I put a car back together at the end of '06. I ran the last 2 nights ever at Lake Geneva. My stepdad Mike actually had a couple modifieds in '03 when Hales closed, and I wasn't racing dirt at the time, but he borrowed me his backup car to race the last night at Hales, and since I had a Mid-Am car, I had a Mid-Am car sitting in my shop for 3 years, collecting dust basically without an engine in it and that. So I had an engine built so I could go around the last race at Lake Geneva basically. So I ran the last race at Geneva in '06, and then kind of got the racing bug going again. So I ran Slinger for the first time. I went and ran here full time in '07, and then '08, '09 I kind of only raced a couple times a year, being busy with our business and stuff. So and then basically 2010 I started racing pretty hardcore. We do a lot of racing now the last few years.
So you make the move to the Mid-Am Series in 2011, and you were also named Rookie of the Year at Slinger, or was it for the whole Mid-America Series?
For basically the Midwest Sportsman at Slinger it's the same as a Mid-Am car, same rules, and so I raced '07 at Slinger full time and won basically their Mid-Am, their weekly Mid-Am Rookie of the Year, and in 2011 I went and ran a full Mid-Am Series schedule, floated around. I think they had 10 races that year, and so ended up 5th in their series points and Rookie of the Year on that.
Just a second ago, I looked over and one of your competitors, Bill Preetzel, was walking around here. I'm thinking he's probably stalking you. I'm not really sure. So what's it like to race with Billy Preetzel? Because he's a pretty special guy.
Yeah, he was one of my idols growing up. My favorite races at Hales Corners as a kid was the Hales Opens when Pat Heaney and Bill Preetzel and Don Scheffer come out with their wedge cars. So I mean, I grew up as Bill Preetzel kind of a...
With the sheets of plywood on one side.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember them being with their Sportsman wedge cars. I mean, they were faster than 3/4 of the late miles out there with bigger tires on. Their slings were so fast. But so growing up, Bill was kind of one of my racing idols. So it was neat to race with him for a couple of years. I wrecked him in a heat race at the Dells the first time I was ever passing him, because I probably got a little overexcited. I was passing Bill Preetzel and ended up driving in and spinning him out, so I had to go over and talk to him after to apologize. But
I'm sure he took that gentleman.
yeah, he wasn't too happy at the moment, but I talked to Bill here and there, so he's gotten over it over the years.
You think?
In 2012, you moved into the late model division at Slinger, and you were Rookie of the Year also for that division?
Yep, basically with the Mid-Am cars, they've been kind of dying out over the years with Lake Geneva closing, and a lot of the tracks that used to run the Mid-Am type cars in their weekly shows aren't running anymore. Pretty much it's down the Slinger. Grundy is the only weekly tracks in the Midwest that's still running them. So we decided to switch to late models, and that gave us the opportunity to go travel around and go race different tracks when we felt like it. So basically did that the last 3 years, and then now we're building some super late models to move forward for next year.
Was there anybody that helped you get into that late model program or backed you, and what type of chassis and motor combination did you run?
I ran, in the Mid-Am cars, I ran B&B engines, and then I switched to Terry's engines because he was kind of solicited me for a year or two and offered me a pretty sweet pricing and stuff. So switched to him for the first couple of years. I ran the late models and I bought used left-hander chassis. That basically the first car was a '97 left-hander, and like the one I ran last year, we won championship, was a whole Ford left-hander. So I've just bought used left-handed cars, but left-handed helps me out. I'm a left-handed sponsored race team for them, so I get some favorable pricing on all parts and stuff from them. But last year I actually switched from Terry's engines to Wagner and ran one of their LS engines last year, and they're doing my super late stuff for this year too.
So I see on the notes here that you have a team car and a team driver. So, you know, Ryan Farrell is your team driver?
Yep, pretty much how it came about in 2010. I had two Mid-Am cars, and I wrecked one up in the Dells, and Ryan Farrell, he raced, back then they called them Thunder Stocks, basically like a street stock division at Slinger. He raced those at Slinger, and him and he basically had three crew guys. They all crewed for James Swan on the Mid-Am series, and we had a lot of James Swan is probably the most successful Mid-Am racer over the last 10, 15 years. They all crewed for him for a couple of years, and they basically were looking to do something different, so they started coming hanging around my shop, and I basically made a deal with Ryan and his crew guys that they fixed my car that was sitting in the corner and wrecked from the Dells. That I let him run it a couple times up at Slinger, and he went out and won a feature within the first night. He ran it after they put it back together. So then I pretty much told him he could keep running it. So
Yeah, we are back out of it now, right?
yeah. So over the years, it's, you know, he's basically kind of formed a partnership in our racing operation. He's younger, 10 years younger than me. He's in his late 20s, and his main crew guys that he basically brought to our team are young 20s. They're me being 37. Guys I used to go racing with when I was in my 20s. They're married, having families, and doing other things in life, so I don't really have any help going racing with. So basically, an arrangement is Ryan and his crew that younger and less other obligations in life basically help me go racing, and I help them go racing.
Now, don't forget your $4.
Yeah, they're not. My second oldest is in the racing. She actually started racing junior dragsters this past year, but
Did she have the junior dragster at World of Wheels?
no, we didn't. I was actually down in Speed Weeks during the World of Wheels, so I didn't even get there this year. But she's got the racing. My oldest is she doesn't have any interest. So
The junior dragster program was pretty impressive. A lot of women started in that deal.
yep, and that's actually kind of what drew her into it. When she was 5, she thought she wanted to race go-karts. So I went to that little charade and got her kid car. Got all this stuff to go-kart racing with her because that's what she wanted to do. And then she got both feet and changed her mind and didn't want to do it. So those kid carts are for 5 to 8-year-olds. So pretty much when she turned 8, I put it on eBay and sold it. And then all of a sudden she turned 9 and she comes in the shops. Where's my go-kart? I want to go racing. I said, well, for one, you're too old for that car anymore. And for two, you haven't asked about it for 3 years, so I sold it. She basically watched a Disney movie with the Ender sisters in it, how they started racing in junior dragsters. Came to me and said, how about those? Can I race one of those? And I told her I'd help her go race whatever she wanted to, so we started doing that last year.
So in 2014, that was your first track championship?
Correct.
And for people who don't know about the limited late model division, who were some of your biggest challengers to that championship?
It was pretty much came down to Alex Prunty and myself. I think between the two of us, we won I looked at statistics, I think we won 92% of the fast times between the two of us, and like 87% of the features. So I got 8 fast times and 7 feature wins. I think he had 5 fast times and 3 feature wins. So I think there's only one other weekly. There's only one other guy that had fast times. That's him and I on the weekly shows, and then I think there was 3 on the feature wins. So it pretty much came down to him and I. We were a couple hundred points ahead of 3rd place by the last couple weeks of the season, but it was pretty much by the second to last week, we pretty much had it wrapped up all we had to get as our show up place to come here last night.
What gave you such a comfort level? Because that's a pretty healthy statistic down there to have that many quick times and that many feature wins at one particular track. But that's a pretty hard joint to get around that consistently.
Yeah, well, I've raced there between the mid-am cars and late models. I've raced there probably between 5 and 6 years racing here now. So I mean, it's out any track I go to is the most comfortable for me to race because I got so many laps around here over 5 or 6 years. But we did the last couple of years that we run late models. We've been up front, winning a couple of races a year or whatever. And what really changed in the off season, I think this year is a couple of things. I did a lot of homework over off season on ways to try to make the car faster. And then
Do you think the track change helped at all?
I didn't really notice a difference with the grind and the surface. Actually, in the beginning of the season, it seemed like it made the track a little smoother. You didn't have, the dip coming off the corner that would kind of upset the car a little bit. But that, being a dirt racer, that never really bothered me anyway. I just stayed on the gas and drove through it. But I guess, some other people were complaining about it. But it actually seemed like it made the track smoother, but it seemed like it took probably a month or 2 before it actually had enough rubber back on it that it started getting faster throughout the year. But it's pretty much, I would say it might have improved things a tenth or whatever, but the difference for us wasn't any track related. It was pretty much stuff we did in the off season. And then like our first year we ran late models, we finished points. The first year, man, we had 3 engines go off that year, so DNFs have killed us and points in the past. And this year was just kind of a season that we had no engine failure. We had no mechanical failures at all year, so we have to say a solid finish of it.
Sounds like you're pretty well prepared for 2015 already?
Yeah, I was actually going to go race in Florida, so our super late's ready to go. Our first race around this area, we're going to go run the Dallas Icebreaker 100 in mid-April, and basically test the waters with super late model racing. But I sold my other cars, and I brand new left-hander came out with a new chassis design this past year, and I'm going to be running their new cars.
So, you have any sponsors you want to tell us about for 2015? Or anybody backing you in particular? Or you just plan to run the Sunday shows? Or like you said, you're going to try a couple other specials maybe?
As far as sponsors, we're pretty much self-sponsored with a couple of business interests as I have in Good Day Construction and GDC Heating and Cooling. Wagner helps us out a little bit. He's become a really good ally over the past year, and then, like I mentioned, left-hander helps us out a little bit too. And as far as our plans for the season, it's basically Slinger. Slinger's the definite. Kind of on the fence with the Thunder Series. 2 months ago, I was thinking about running that full time, but now I'm having it on if we should commit to that or just commit to Slinger and then go run random races here and there at Madison and Dells and maybe Plover. I've seen having a couple specials. maybe just kind of float around. The long-term goal is to run the Hartford Midwest Tour in a year or two. So, you know, get our feet wet at different tracks and try to gain some laps and knowledge at some of the tracks that the Hartford Midwest Tour runs, so that we're better prepared in a year or two. We'll try that.
Is it strictly going to be an asphalt deal and no more dirt?
Yeah, I bought a dirt car, a dirt mod 2 years ago. I was hoping to go race that 5-10 times a year, but chasing the championship at Slinger this year, we were 100% focused on that. And so we only made it out once with our dirt car. And the other main reason I bought the dirt car, besides to go run it, was Rockford has their end of the year race, Bahama Brackets. That Pat Heaney actually was the one that wrote me in the running 5-6 years ago. We've had so much fun running that. And I've been close to winning it a couple times, and the man hours that we put, I mean, it takes us 100 to 150 man hours to convert. We had to have a stock stuff car to run the Bahama Brackets, and then we ran it last October in 2013 was the first time we ran my dirt modified, and we ran it on the asphalt the first time out. We spent about 150 hours over the winter converting it back over to dirt, and then only made it out one time all year, and then spent 100+ hours converting it back to go run asphalt. So after this year, I said, all right, we're just leaving it set up for asphalt.
Sure fun to go racing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, just briefly, over your career, you have raced at some pretty unique places. You want to tell us about some, according to your website again, some of the tracks like you mentioned, New Smyrna?
Yeah, probably some of the most memorable tracks that I've raced at. Probably the worst results-wise, but to be able to race Milwaukee Mile a couple years ago was what I call a bucket list item. I remember going there as a kid, watching, Dick Trickle, Mark Martin, and Alan Quickie, and those guys race there in the 80s when I was just a kid. But so to be able to race there a couple years ago was exciting. And then I was telling Faye earlier that I used to go down with my stepdad. We used to go to speed weeks every year, and he was good friends with George Shuffler and Pete Parker and some of those guys that would go down there and race speed weeks. My stepdad never did. We would just go down there to hang out and go out with those guys and stuff while we're down there. But growing up as a kid, dreaming about racing myself one day, to me, if I grew up and raced speed weeks, I was in the big time. So that was kind of a bucket list item, but I never thought I'd be down there racing on the asphalt track. The tracks I never even went to a race at New Smyrna until I showed up there to race, because the tracks we went to were East Bay and Felicia when I grew up. But so I mean, the speed weeks deal was another bucket list item that was something that you were dreaming about as a kid, got to achieve later in life.
All right, how about the 30 seconds, Gib? I'll let you lead off with the first one here. And Dan, if you want to not speak on the topic, we'll just pass.
Any person at the racetrack that you would go to for advice and lean on him, or not lean on him?
Probably the biggest competitor that's been helpful, that I've leaned on a lot, has been James Swan. He actually, I didn't start winning races in the Mid-Am cars until he pretty much helped me, and he was the guy that was winning 95% of the races. So I don't know if he started helping me because he needed some competition or what, but it might have been getting boring for him winning it every week, but he was
Good way to look at it anyway.
yeah, so I mean, him and his crew chief actually came down to my shop and taught me a bunch of stuff that I didn't even know we could do with our Mid-Am cards. And so him and I still, over the years, in Mid-Am racing, him and I would say probably had the tightest bond of being competitors that helped each other out. super late models and stuff the last couple of years, so we haven't really raced against each other, but I mean, we're still good friends, and now that we're both racing super late models, I mean, him and I talk and we go out on occasions, and, you know, we're sharing ideas with our super late model stuff. I mean, he's actually leaning on me a little bit about some of the new left-hander geometry and stuff he's doing. He has Pathfinder cars, but he's trying to incorporate some stuff into his Pathfinder cars that my left-hander cars have.
So you're saying he's now leaning on you for advice?
Well, I don't,
It sounds that way.
not that I have the answers, but I mean,
Well,
Dad has been, out of the relationships I've had in racing, it's him and I have probably.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that give advice at racetracks. It's the one you can trust, that's the main thing.
Yeah,
They all have a good hot tip.
Right.
yeah.
One race you wanted to win but didn't, or that you still want to win?
I'm not really one to dwell on the past too much, so there's not one that sticks out in my mind, but I guess basically moving forward, I would really like to win a super late mile race to know I've been able to compete with pretty much the best of the best in circuit track racing and pull off some wins.
Dirt or asphalt?
On asphalt. Dirt would be fun, but I haven't been geared up for that.
So now that you're going to be racing on asphalt entirely, if you had an opportunity to run NASCAR, or you had an opportunity, and again, now we're picking a pie in the sky deal, you could run NASCAR or IndyCar on pavement, no money out of your pocket at all. What race would you want to run? And don't tell me the Indy 500.
No, I would say Bristol would be my number one race if I could run in the major leagues. One race, it would be probably Bristol.
Well, we want to thank you for coming down here today. Dan Church, all the way from Williams Bay. Good luck in 2015 with the Super Late Model program, and congratulations. I hope you're still savoring that first championship from 2014. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Our next guest will be Mr. Steve Apel from West Bend. And we did have one cancellation in our program today. Mr. Mitch McGrath, unfortunately unable to make it. If we have a few minutes at the end, we'll go over a little bit of his resume from 2014, which I thought was pretty outstanding. But this guy coming in here right now, fantastic resume of his own. And from West Bend, Wisconsin, let's give him a hand, Steve Apel.
And Dave, before we start, every time I see him, he reminds me of one of my school kids because he looks like he's about 11. How old are you?
26.
Really?
Yep.
He's a short track veteran already at age 26.
Oh, he's just a kid.
We start off pretty much every conversation with what got you interested in racing, and when did you run your first race, and where was it?
Well, when I was growing up, as soon as I was out of diapers, my dad took me to the racetrack, and I rode around and stuff in the stands, and we picked who I would win, and it came down to, that was what we wanted to do. We wanted to behave at home, so we would go to the racetrack on Sunday. I grew up at Slinger watching the races with my parents and my brother, and then as we got older, we started getting more involved in the team that my dad helped out, which was Danny Delcamp, which Fred Wynn kind of started racing for him, and Steve Holzbeck, and Schumacher and Francis. So we kind of started doing that, and that was kind of what we wanted to do. I looked up to the Connor Morgans, the Lowell Bennettts, and all the guys that were at Slinger that were winning every single week, and I wanted to be like them. So my first ever race was at Slinger on a four-cylinder. I was 14 years old. My brother and I had to kind of be back together. And race 1 week and he raced the next. And I did that for the first year. And the second year, we had another car, and when I was 16, we moved up to limited late models for Dan and Zoe Delkamp and Carlson now. And they pretty much said if I could come up with money to run it and a motor, I could race. So kind of got me started in the fire up ranks.
And who was the biggest influence on your career in the early years that built the foundation for where your career has gone today?
I would definitely say my family. Would definitely push you to be the best you can be in everything you do in life, outside racing, between trying to be the good husband with my wife and a good family man, and trying to do your best you can at the racetrack.
So now that you're at the racetrack and here you are 15, 16 years old, how are you assessing your capabilities behind the wheel? Were you intimidated the first time, or when you got out there and you figured that, oh, this is a piece of cake?
Well, I mean, I never raced 4 cylinders or go-karts, so kind of like my first ever race, I never really drove stick shift besides to get it going. Dropped the green flag and had the first gear, hit the gas, and pushed the clutch and the brake and the gas at the same time, and put it next gear, and I never let off the clutch. And kind of behind me hit me, and kind of pushed off the brake pedal or the clutch pedal, and you kept going. So I think this never really was nervous getting behind the wheel. I just figured it was the speed was the adrenaline rush. I can't love that. And it never really scared me, so it was kind of keep going.
Yeah, and race car drivers were scared anyway.
Of course.
I mean, we were never scared.
Yeah.
In 2009, you moved to the super late models, if I have that right?
Yeah, it was about that time period. The first year I ran a super late, we ran a limited and a super late all together in 1 year. And there was a lot of racing to come to the track and run 2 cars, try to be competitive in both. We ended up finishing second in points in the limited late model division, and then winning a rookie of the year in the super late model stuff. And then the next year I wanted to focus on the super late program, and the last 2 years have pretty much been a breaking point where that was our total dedication, was just 1 car, 1 track, and make sure that we can go to the racetrack, and we know that when we get there, we can win the race.
So in 2012, you lose out on a track championship at Slinger by 10 points, and if I have the story straight, you almost walked away from Slinger and from racing. What caused that, and what brought you back?
It pretty much was the way that the track was run at the time. Everybody kind of has their controversy and situations that happened, but it got to the end of the year, and we had set past time, and the invert was a lot more than it had been in the past, and the invert was based off of the track owner's discretion, and kind of put us deep in the field and put the guy who was racing the championship on the front row. So kind of at that point, it was kind of like I really had to work for it to get it, and it came down to it, and the guy that won the championship finished second, I finished third, but because he got more laps, he won the championship. So we were pretty, I mean, it was a pretty rough night, because we wanted to win it the worst way, and that would have been our first championship for myself and for Team 16, so it was a big deal. And that winter, we started working on a car, and we talked about it, like, we're not going to run Slinger full time anymore. It takes all the fun away from racing, and we missed the opener. We sat at the house that day and cooked out the grill, and all the guys on the team kind of just relaxed, and we went to the races and watched the racing, and like, man, we should be out here racing. We're not. Sitting in the stands watching it, and that was kind of the turning point. Like, you know what, next week we're coming back, and we came back. Boundary determined to do it, win every single race. That was kind of our goal. We weren't going to points race. We were going to win. We were going to go there and win every single race, and whatever happened at the end of the year happened. And we actually ended up winning the championship. So it was a great year for us. We had a really good season, and it all worked out. And at that point, there was new owners in the track. We're not just Todd Thielen was taking over. And, that was kind of you kind of talked me into coming back and trusting that things were going to change. Definitely.
So 2013, you put that year together, even though you missed the first night, you win the first track championship of your career, and the first one for your car owners also, right?
Correct.
And
Now, in 2014, you come back and you duplicate that. This past season, that had to be really, really special, because obviously whatever you were thinking in 13, and to back it up, that's the real deal.
Yeah, we pretty much came back last year with the same mentality to win races and finish every single lap. And we didn't have one mechanical failure the entire year. We finished every single race, every lap except for one, and that was a self-induced. Early in the night, I went through wide and I got black flag for it. So I got parked for the night. But other than that, we finished every single lap. So just a lot of maintenance and a lot of hard work by the crew guys to be able to do that.
And 2014 was kind of a bounce back year for Conrad. I think he won 3 features. Lowell came up with 2 or 3, so it was not easy to repeat last season for 2 in a row.
Yeah, we had a really good year last year, and probably better than the year before, just for finishes and fast times and feature wins. It was a very consistent year. We didn't have a lot of bad nights. When we did have bad nights, we were able to rebound and come back and have a good finish out of it. So we definitely was supportive of the guys on the race team and the girls for sticking it out. Going back and running every single week takes its toll on everybody.
I joked with you about how young you look, but in factualness, you're the youngest double winner that Slinger's ever had, which I think is incredible. I almost think we ought to give him a round of applause, but that's going back probably 50 years.
Yeah. I mean, this last week has been a pretty good week for us. I actually ended up getting the Allen Cookie Driver Development Program, which was a huge benefit for us financially and support-wise from the Cookie Foundation. So be able to come back to Slinger and run full-time there, and also kind of try to do some traveling a little bit. It came out. That's kind of our goal this year, was to go to Slinger every single week, but then at the same time go to tracks like Madison and La Crosse and Kaukauna, and be able to kind of get out and branch out a little bit to try to get more learning experience.
And I'm sure Dave and maybe all the people in the audience have read about that 7777 deal. So you get $7,777, and well, that's a pretty good startup nest egg.
It is, and this year we started our own race team, so I'll be racing for myself. It's a family-owned race team out of my house garage. So that was a huge deal for us, and that's going to help us a ton. We have a lot of really good sponsors that have been backing us for a lot of years that really stepped up this year to kind of make sure they help me out financially. So without the sponsors, it can't go to the racetrack. I mean, it's not even possible.
So he becomes the second youngest driver to ever win back-to-back titles at Slinger, other than Allen. And he has won more races in the last 3 seasons than any other driver at Slinger, and he could be looking at becoming a 3-time champion if he win the title in 2015. And there have been 5 other drivers in the history of the track who have won 3 titles or more in a row. Can you name who they are?
I would probably have to say Lowell Bennett, probably one of them.
He's done it twice.
Probably Conrad and maybe Brad Miller.
Conrad's done it once, and Brad Miller has done it once. There are 2 other guys.
Al Schill.
Al Schill is the other one, and there's one left. He's moved on to NASCAR in an executive position, but...
And his first name begins with Robbie.
Yeah, his car is sitting right over there. So those 5 guys have won 3 in a row.
That's pretty
At one time or another, and Lowell has, like I said, has done it twice. He's got 7 altogether, so this would be great for you to hitch up that 2015 championship.
We definitely will be a tough task. I think we have a target on our back for winning 2 in a row already. But we definitely didn't take the season off, the winter off to celebrate. We've been hard at work getting the car ready for this year. And I mean, after the 2013, we ended up selling the car and building a new car with a different chassis builder. That was kind of a big change for us. But we came back and still had a good season last year. So I'm really looking forward to this year coming up with the same car as last year, but with a different motor package. I think it will be one of the cars to beat, but definitely we'll have a target on our back to be taken down. So.
And I have here that, this begins a new chapter in your racing career. You're switching car owners to yourself. You're switching the number of your car. You're going to run 51.
Yep.
And you're going to be a new dad sometime during the season. You got a lot on your plate here for 2015.
Yeah, 2015, so far it started off pretty good. My wife's pregnant and we're expecting first child end of August. So we'll be right from the championship on.
Right, the night you wrap it up.
The due date right now is on a Sunday, but hopefully that changes.
So Dave, I don't have any of that on mine. What are you sneaking in the back door?
No, it's in your script also. I know we kind of jumped ahead to the Kawicki thing, but this is a brand new first year Alan Kawicki Driver Development Program through Thelma Kawicki, who was Alan's stepmother, and Tom Roberts is the executive director of this program, and on the board is Dennis Arneska. Everybody probably knows him from years ago with the Racing Roundup and Darryl Dobbs. They started out that Monday night racing program, and Paul Andrews is on that board, of course, veteran crew chief with Rusty and Alan, and Tony Gibson, who's crew chiefing for the lady in NASCAR right now. There's 6 or 7 people on that board, but those are 3 names I think everybody would know. There were originally 15 people picked. Can you give us a little idea of how you found out about the program and how you became one of the 15, of which 6 of them were from Wisconsin, and several of them were from, John DeAngelis runs at Slinger, Alex Prunty, Skylar Holzhausen, of course, from central Wisconsin. But how did you find out about the program?
And Steve, before you say that, the winner of that whole package gets 7 times that $7,777, which if I, being an ex-math teacher without a calculator, that's like about $55,000.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in the line at the end of the year. We're looking for somebody that can best represent the foundation, and it's a huge honor. I mean, Tuesday morning when they announced it, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, well, if I lose, I don't know. It's such an up and down morning, and then when they announced it, it was very, very cool. But Father Grubo kind of talked about it last summer with me a little bit. He kind of brought it up, saying if it does go through, that he said we should apply. Because I think it'd be a good fit. And this has been kind of in the works for the last couple of years. They finally, this year, the first year, they actually came out with it, and they actually are going forward with it. So it's really cool. It's really good deal for the 7 of us that made it. It helps out everybody a lot, where they can continue on the Kawicki legacy. And there's a lot of money in the line at the end of the year, so it comes down to who can win the most races and put on a good season, and at the same time support the tracks, the series, and the short track racing.
Did you interview with Tom Roberts or people from the program?
Yeah, we pretty much found about it from Father Gruba, and he came out with the website and filled out the application. My wife and I spent some good time filling out the application. We put a lot of effort into it, and sent that in. And then once they announced the top 15, they added a phone interview with all the people on the board, and they asked questions and what we want to do this year, what you would do for them, what we can do, what they can do for us, and then it was kind of waiting game after that. And, said, we found it on Tuesday, so it's a really, really good opportunity for us.
And the 7 finalists that are eligible for 7 times the original stipend, which you calculated is in the $50,000 range. Of course, yourself, Ty Majeski from Seymour, 20-year-old ARCA Midwest Tour champion. Justin Kreider from North Carolina, he's 18. Dave Farrington Jr. from Maine, he's 23. Reagan May, a female driver from De Pere, she's 21. Bryce Napier from California, he's 15. And Cole Williams from Sellersburg, Indiana, he's 18 years old. He was a track champion at Nashville Fairgrounds last year. Traveled 7 hours each way to go to race the track that made Waltrip famous. And you're kind of the senior at 26 of this group of 7, and I'm looking through all these names, and wow, they've all got credentials, but I think you have the credentials to take it all.
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, I kind of looked at the same thing, and I looked at the numbers, and definitely in the oldest person by a couple of years, but Dick Trinkel wasn't very young when he was Rookie of the Year in NASCAR, so that's how I was about age. Still under 30, so I think I still have some of the chance.
You're not going to start smoking Lucky Strikes and carry a cup of coffee, and Father Gruba maybe give you some advice on that.
And a bottle of Pabst.
All right.
30 seconds, Dave, our favorite deal.
30 seconds. Well, yeah, the first question would be, what would you do with $55,000?
Do a lot of racing next year.
Yeah. My first thing on the 30-second topics was, what's your favorite thing to do on your car for race prep? A lot of guys don't like to adjust valves, or, what's your favorite thing to do?
Favorite thing to do? I guess scale the car. It's kind of a time-consuming thing, but I do stuff a little bit different than most teams do. But I think that's a help for us. Between my brother and myself and the guys on the team, we do all the work. We don't rely on somebody else to do it for us. When I first started racing, I guess it was kind of, I asked the guys I raced against questions, and they kind of didn't want to. I mean, they would help me out a little bit, but they didn't want to give away all the secrets either. So now all of a sudden, when they're asking me questions, I kind of laugh. And because back in the day, they didn't want to give out too much, so I didn't want to give out too much either. So that was the thing, I guess, setting the car up was my favorite thing, because I take a lot of pride in getting it right.
When we first started talking with you, you mentioned several people that were heroes when you were a young boy yesterday. Who was your hero when you were growing up?
I guess it's hard to say. I don't really have one hero. I mean, I was a big Jeff Gordon fan.
Me too.
But I guess slinger-wise, Lowell Bennett, and Connor Morgan, and Al Shield were the ones that I looked up to the most. And then to be able to race against them still today is an awesome feat, let alone. And I told Connor last year when he won the race, when I'm 60-some years old, I hope I can still walk, let alone win a feature at Slinger and Super League. It's outstanding.
Well put.
And did he say he got paid more when he's 67 or when he was 37?
I think the
It's
same.
the same. It's the same, and the tires have gone up. Newsflash. Yeah. Favorite track you've raced at other than Slinger?
Favorite track I raced other than Slinger, Hartford Speedway.
Jim, you got the last one there. This is a loaded question.
Yeah, it sure is. 2015, I mean, if you think about what we've gone through this cruddy winter, and now everybody's expectations, because March just came on like you want to hug it. What are your plans for 2015?
Go back to Slinger every single week, win races. We're planning on going to Madison, a Triple Crown race out there. It's a 3-race deal. That track was just recently bought by Grant McCarnes, which is a supporter of short track racing. So I'm going to go support him. And then run the Red, White, Blues up in Fauna. And then after the season's over at Slinger, then depending on how everything goes with the kid. Try to do some traveling to across Hartford again, and then possibly down to Florida.
Well, I'll tell you from a personal standpoint, the sky's the limit for you. I mean, you've got not only charisma, but you're really a great race car driver. And I know Dave and I and all the rest of us, we wish you the best, and good success in 2015.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking time out of the shop to come down. And I gotta talk to Steve before you take off about a milling machine. So I know he sells milling machines. Just for everybody's information here, of course, we're doing a 50-50. We still have some door prizes to do. We got about 15 door prizes, I think. So if you haven't got your tickets, Bob has them back there. Opening days at local tracks. Just for everybody's information, Beaver Dam will open up April 18th. Slinger will open up April 26th. Plymouth and Wilmot May 2nd, and Manitowoc Expo May 8th. We're sorry that Mitch McGrath couldn't be here with us today. I just wanted to run over a couple statistics on him. For those of you who don't know, he was the first Badger Modified Tour Series champion in 2013. In order to win that championship, he beat out some national champions, Benji Lacrosse, Jared Seifert, Brian Mullen. And that was like Mitch's second full year in a modified car. And then last year he comes into the late model division. Of course, he's a nephew of Russ and Rick Scheffler, grandson of George. His dad, Joe McGrath, is a modified driver, but Mitch comes into the late model division and he calmly wins the track championship at Manitowoc. He beats out a 6-time champion at Shawano and Ron Berna, and of course Tim Bueller, who ran there every week. Then he goes over to Plymouth and he beats out J.J. Miller and Bueller again, and he wins the track championship in Plymouth, so now he's got 2. And then he also is the Wisconsin Dirt Late Model Association champion. So he's got all 3 of those in 1 year. No one in history of that setup or those tracks running late models has ever done that. Uncle Russ has won the championship at Manitowoc and at Plymouth and the WDLMA, but he's never done all 3 in 1 year, which I thought phenomenal accomplishment. So my question was, what the hell are you going to do in 2015? You've done it all. You're ready to go in the Hall of Fame after 3 years of driving, but unfortunately Mitch couldn't be here today. So we do want to thank the people who did show up today, and once again, don't forget to check our website for the summer shows we got coming up. Thanks again to Gib for sharing the mic here today, and don't forget to get your ballots in. If you don't have the newsletter, see John. We do have a Dirt Late Model magazine up here that features Mitch McGrath. This is courtesy of Jim Crystal. This will be one of the door prizes, and so we will do those door prizes in about 15 minutes. So if you've still got time to purchase a couple tickets, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Thanks for coming out.
So how's your conduct been? What? How's your conduct been? Quite reminds me Good for you.